Hello everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Throwback Thursdays, Total Nerd Talk edition with yours truly, ya boy, CJ. So today, as promised, I'm going to continue flipping through my handy dandy Marvel encyclopedia here, and I'm gonna focus on some of our beloved Avengers Marvel characters, because I'm still having that Avengers movie withdrawal. So why not dwell into the past, the history, some of our favorite moments of these characters with a twist. So if you have watched our comeback podcast episode that's available on YouTube and SoundCloud, you'll have noticed towards the end Hector mentioning a comment that I had made to the bros a couple months back in relation to, just how important the bond we have is to me. And I kind of likened it or made some comparisons to the four of us and four of the core original Avengers team members. And I'm going to kind of give you guys a little sort of, getting to know your TNT Pod crew more than just who we are on the podcast. I mean, if you're a big fan of us from before, I'm pretty sure you really have gotten to know us, but I'm going to go ahead and get some correlations between Hector, Trav, Dan, and myself to these four characters of Iron Man, the Hulk, Thor, and Captain America. And as I talk about that and put my few 2 cents in there, I'll be referring to the encyclopedia, all right? Okay, so to help add a little spark to this episode, I'm going to go ahead and start with each of the four characters by saying the member of the crew who I made the comparison to, give an example of why, then refer to a portion of the encyclopedia that shows the origin of a really cool scene that we've seen in the MCU movie cinematic universe, and end off by referring to a part of that character's history that would actually be really cool to see in a future movie if possible. So, the man, the myth, the legend, Captain America, would be our man, our design editor, the one that brought us all together, Hector. I look at him as the real reason why we even do this and that we got together in the first place. And you look at Captain America as truly the glue between the Avengers, clearly in the movie, but even in the history and in the comics. And you refer here from when the moment that Cap was discovered again. You see, he started out kind of out of place. He was kind of too good for the society he was in. But it says here, Cap accepted offer of Avengers membership, swiftly became the binding glue that held the team together. I really look at, from when we started this podcast to when we restarted the podcast, Hector really being the one that got us together, really gave me opportunity to meet some of these guys. I wouldn't have known Travis if it wasn't for this podcast. And we really grew and had such an amazing bond together. And he's just completely huge-hearted guy. And he really goes above and beyond to get things going and have things continue. And that really defines, in essence, who he is to me and to us as a group. Now, a part of Cap's history, our story that we saw on the big screen that was a really WTF moment, was when he picked up Thor's hammer. And here you can see, after his shield was smashed into pieces by the serpent, Steve briefly wielded the mystical hammer Mjolnir. Probably mispronounced that. Don't crucify me for it. So here, this is related to a portion of his story when they had a rather intense battle on Asgard. But it was really neat that from the beginning, clearly he was another character that was worthy. And I'm sure when this story was fresh and released, it was as big of a WTF moment as it was for us in movie theaters all over the world. Now, finally, something that would be cool to see, and we're probably going to get it in some shape or form in Disney Plus. Often imitated Captain America, there were so many that tried to do it. The only two to really succeed were Bucky and Sam. But here, there were quite a few stories, missions, a whole new era where Bucky Barnes was the new Captain America. And you really see some key components of the story of Captain America through Bucky's eyes when it was thought that Captain America was killed, which turned out to be kind of a whole, he was suspended and like time and animation ordeal and thing, timey-wimey stuff. But the point is, this would be really, really cool to see how Disney Plus portrays this. I know it's supposed to be really Sam, not Bucky, but there's a lot of raw material here that can be used. So that's the talk on Cap and our boy Hector. Next up, Thor, the Asgardian god of thunder. And I made a correlation to Travis, who really brings the thunder to our podcast. And as a warrior, someone who's been in many battles, kind of thought of Travis's time spent in the military, similar with how I also made the correlation to Hector and his affiliation with the military and Captain America being a member of the armed forces. But Thor definitely, I make a correlation to Travis with his energy and his strength and just his so much untapped potential. And he really brings that spark and energy to our crew, similar to how Thor brought that to the Avengers. And a part of Thor's history that was a big moment in MCU movie cinematic universe was Ragnarok. It was arguably one of the best, if not like the best, definitely top 3 of the MCU's movies that they released. And here, well, in both the MCU movies and in the comics, Ragnarok was kind of the end of Asgard as they knew it. It was quite a bit different in the comics, really having to do with, it mentions here when Thor moved Asgard to Earth, and him kind of realizing the time cycle that his people were in, and the series of events that led to him wiping himself and Asgard from existence. So in the movie universe, yes, Asgard was destroyed, had to do with secrecy and a whole bunch of things, and Odin's ultimate demise and some maturation of Thor as a character. So you can see that they took some core pieces from here and put their own spin and added parts from different areas of the chronology of Thor to throw it into that movie Ragnarok, which ultimately it worked out to their, for them. Now, something that would be cool to see, we wouldn't be able to see it this way. Kind of when Thor came to believe he was unworthy of his role, the mantle was picked up by Jane Foster. Yeah, she hasn't really been in any more movies related to Thor, which is okay, but you could see Valkyrie kind of take that role, because at the end of Avengers, when the new Asgard's on Earth, you see Thor semi-still fat Thor getting ready to move on with the Guardians of the Galaxy and Valkyrie taking over. That would be kind of interesting. It's definitely something we could see. Valkyrie is pretty badass, and maybe they already have that in the works for the next phase. Who knows? So that's it on Thor and your boy Trav. Next up, the beloved Hulk. And the comparison I make to the Hulk is our man Dan. He's just such a powerhouse on our podcast and our crew. But on the flip side, he's really just such a soft, nice, cordial guy. But then he has this And you ever play video games with Dan? He has this ferocity and energy that he brings, and he's a really emotional dude. He's the guy you want to go to talk about stuff, to help get you through a tough time in your life. And he really has like that Bruce Banner Hulk side, and I really, really definitely saw the clear correlation with the Hulk and him. I mean, when Dan gets going on our podcast, he's just got that unstoppable energy, and it really helps us going. And a part of the Hulk story that we saw make it to the MCU screen, well, it was changed quite a bit. It's the Planet Hulk storyline. So this was portions of this were taken and put in the movie Ragnarok. Again, ding ding ding, why that was clearly one of the best movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But with the Planet Hulk storyline, it had to do with after he helped deal with the satellite issue, getting fired into deep space by this organization, the Illuminati, going through a wormhole, crash landing on a war-torn planet, being forced into kind of a slavery, gladiator battling. Sound kind of familiar? Yeah. After Avengers 2, Age of Ultron, the Hulk disappears. He's in space. Oh, we see him when Thor gets there. It was a really cool way to kind of connect these characters on their own. But a lot of what happened from Planet Hulk was put there. I mean, a crowd favorite. Where is he at over here? There he goes. There's a nice picture of him right here, Korg. He's from that Planet Hulk storyline. And that leads me to something that would be really nice to see in the future with the Hulk story, but when I highly doubt we're going to get it, because Thor Ragnarok was the closest Hulk got to another movie, or some might even say his own movie, because a lot of Hulk standalone movies it's debatable on whether you really want to include them or like them. But one of them is clearly included in the MCU universe, but I don't think we'll ever see another Hulk standalone movie. But if we did, seeing the Hulk family would be pretty damn awesome. I mean, everybody knows about She-Hulk, I'm sure, but there was a lot more into that. So that's all for now on the Hulk and our man Dan. So yes, you guessed it. Last but not least, Iron Man would be associated with yours truly, me, CJ. And often with Iron Man, such a gifted and talented individual, but often troubled and grappling with issues of his past and often becoming his own worst enemy. But always it's his friends that really get him through everything. You can see in the comics he often had issues he dealt with, but gradually, with the support of his friends, he overcame his threats, addictions, whatever they may be, and he often had conflict with the team, but he was always a consistent and constant member. And I really feel with the bros and the podcast, it's helped bring out some of the best in me, and I couldn't really see it any other way. And we really are just that ragtag team that we tried to do it. We went away, it stopped for a while, and we're back. And that's just part of our bond, the bros. Now, part of Iron Man's history, one of his villains, actually, where is the first mention? Over here, business rival Justin Hammer. You might remember him as that kind of tool, villainous guy in the second Iron Man. That was just kind of throwing money at the problem to the main villain of the movie, and he was just kind of an annoying, weaselly guy. But he's actually one of, I guess, more so Tony Stark's villain than Iron Man's, but I guess really both, because he's always trying to take his tech, and he reappears a few times in the chronology of Iron Man. He was only mentioned in that one movie, but he was more so a recurring villain. So that's something we've seen get transitioned to the movies. Something that would have been nice to see that we didn't get, and as with the Hulk, we probably won't get it, has to do with the Mandarin. He was the villain we saw in the third and final single solo Iron Man film. And I know a lot of people already knew this and talked about it, but the Mandarin really impacted a lot of Tony's story. And he had these 10 rings. I mean, yes, the Mandarin character in the movie had rings, but they had no ability, and he was kind of the fake Mandarin. The real Mandarin was just the guy who was had kidnapped Pepper and had his own villainous schemes. But the comic book Mandarin really more of a mystical powers with these rings, and it really took a lot to defeat him. And the actions of that fight led to Tony going through a lot. One of them being when he faked his death here. James Rhodes kind of, War Machine became the new Iron Man. So it led to a lot of interesting story points. And it would have been neat if we saw the Mandarin that way, but I understand how hard that would have been to put into a film. But that's it, folks. That's a wrap for this week's episode. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time. Later.